47 Winwood, and Helen Green Luck and George Luck are going to share their South Brunswick memories with us.
So you want me to start with grandfather, right?
That would be fine.
My grandfather came here in the year 1916 into South Brunswick. He came here because Princeton Nurseries needed somebody to set up the seed beds, and my grandfather was the one who started the seed beds at Kingston back in the 1917-18 year. Dad met my mother. Now I got to get this one right. 1924 they got married.
Her maiden name?
Was Bruton. And she was living in Monmouth Junction at the time.
Whereabouts?
To the best of my knowledge, and I can't hold me on this one, I think at one time they lived, well, they did live right across from where the post office is now.
Hungry Hill.
And also, they had lived down where, what's the name of the Monmouth Junction Fire Company had lived, the one that just passed away not too long ago. Gert and Uncle Jim had that place, which is right across from where the new development is, where, oh, it's a good question. The new development.
White Ridge?
No, it's, well, between the, what they call Ridge and, what's the place there, dear? Come on.
Ridge? I don't know.
On the church in the corner?
No.
The municipal building?
No, dear.
In Monmouth Junction, more?
No, it's out on Ridge Road. Where's the new
Wexford.
development?
Wexford?
Well, it's before Wexford. The next one up.
Okay.
It's been there quite a while now.
Okay, yeah. Welcome Farm.
Welcome Farms. There's a little bungalow just after you pass Welcome Farms Road going in. There's a bungalow on the left-hand side as you're going towards Junction. That's where they also lived there.
I believe
The Geisers lived there for a while, too.
Geisers, and I believe a Landis girl lives there. Bonnie
Well,
Landis.
but Landis lived in behind there. There was a big farm. She lived back in behind that.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
One was a member of the Monmouth Junction Fire Company who lived there, who just passed away not too long ago. But
Alston Hunt is up in that area, too.
Well, but that's where they had been in the Monmouth Junction area, and then Grandma and Grandpa were living in Kingston on the hill, where their first place was. And Mom and Dad got married, and then we lived in, when I was born, we were living on Laurel Avenue in Kingston on the Franklin side. I started school in the old Laurel Avenue school. I was born in the Princeton Medical Center, the old nursing home that is no longer there. They tore that down and made it a medical building. But
Your grandfather came from England.
yeah, Grandpa came from England. This one, so my dad was born in England, and my mother originally was born in Altoona, Pennsylvania, or Trenton. She was born in Trenton. I'm sorry, the family came from Altoona.
And her heritage was Irish?
Well, it's Irish, and also I've been told way back somewhere there's Indian in the family. Don't ask me where. I was told this by one of our relatives. And they came to Kingston and settled in Kingston when they got married. So from then on, I've been, shall I say, I lived in Kingston all my life. I've been a South Brunswick resident since I was born.
Well, not only your grandfather,
My
your grandmother came, your
uncle,
aunts
my
and
aunt
uncles.
also came to Kingston to live, and that Grandpa brought him up because he was also a nurseryman. And to go into further history, let's see what we can do from there.
Your grandparent, your father's name was Robert?
No, my father's name was Leslie J.
Your grandfather?
My grandfather was George.
George. And your
Alice.
father was?
Leslie J. And my grandmother's name was Alice
And her maiden name?
Bellingham. Bellinghamham. My other grandfather was Thomas Bruton, which was my mother's, and my Anna was his wife's name, but and her maiden name was Hines.
No.
So From there, Dad helped us, was a charter member of the Kingston Volunteer Fire Company in 1924, which started in 24. He was one of the charter members of that at the age of 24. He'd been 24 years of age at that time. My wife and I also are founding members of the Kingston First Aid Squad, which started in 1972. The town of Kingston has really changed over the last 60, 70 years. It went from a small one-horse town to one that I think everything but the kitchen sink drives through it now. The traffic is very heavy in the town at this time compared to what it was back in the, even into the 40s or 30s when we had very little traffic. And we had very few homes. I believe the total settlement at one time was only about 150 houses. And I think if you check now for the area of Kingston, you probably got about 750 to 800 homes at least in that area.
Is that the South Brunswick side?
South Brunswick side is the biggest expansion, yes. We've gone from, well, they've added Fair Acres. They've added Fairfield. They've found Heathcote Village, Princeton Walk, have all been added to that area in the last 20 years, 25 years. I can remember when Catelli had their own soda, manufactured soda in Kingston off of Prospect Street, what is now Prospect Street. At that time they were doing it there, it was only a dirt road went in there. But they used to have soda and they also had beer there. That was the Catelli family. And then we had the Taggiola family, which was also involved with that same business there at the time. I can remember the Raskeller. You know, a lot of people won't remember that. But why don't you get that picture of our old house in Kingston from 1901? The one on the wall.
Oh.
In the den.
Oh, okay.
Where did you go to the post office?
The original post office that I went to was up at where Louis' Barber Shop is now. It used to be across the street there, and you could look right in and you could see if you had any mail. You'd have to even go into the post office because the boxes were all lined up against the window, and you could look in the window. If you had mail, you went in and got it. If you didn't have mail, you wouldn't go get it.
Did you have a little store there, or was it just?
No, it became a store later. Here's a picture of 1901 of Main Street of Kingston.
I got to tilt it a little bit down. Okay.
All right.
Tilt it just a little more. Let's see where that reflection was. Okay, wait a minute. Right there for a second. Okay, very good. Thank you.
But this is our house. Shows in the picture is the one right there, the one we were living in Kingston. And as I say, you can see in 1901 it was a dirt road.
And I suppose that Mr. Stewart would still be in business on the corner, or?
Yes, the Kingston Garage is still there, but there's no more gas station.
Right.
That goes back to, I can remember going there when, in the early 1900s. Also, there used to be, they finally built the post office on the corner of Church Street and Route 27. And next to that was a store called Moore's Hardware and Grocery Store, and then you had Tom Bryan's house on that side. And you had the Heckman house, and then you had what was then Brooks's Manor, which was a bar, plus it also had ice cream, and you got your newspapers there.
Was there ever a post office in there?
Not in Brooks's Manor, no.
It must have just been
The only
papers.
other place there was a post office was on the old hotel on the corner of Heathcote and Route 27.
Union Line?
Yeah, the old Union Line is where they had the post office was set up there when they built the new post office. They moved into there for the post office while they were building the new post office, which is now in Kingston. Good Time Charlie's came in the early 80s. or sixties, early sixties.
70s, yeah.
60s.
Yeah, and then they started changing the design of Brooks's Manor. There used to be also the Petrillo ice cream place which is no longer on the main street at all. They tore that down. And then you had El Burritos, which is gone.
People's Store.
Well, People's Store is still there. It's now the Kingston Luncheonette. That was there for a good many years. Well, People's, and then Casera had it after that. Blanche Wolfe was the owner of People's Store because that was her maiden name. And then Casera took that over, and then he sold it to become the Kingston Luncheonette. The liquor store is all new, and that's gone. That moved up. The Kingston Liquor is now up in the Kendall Park area on the shopping center on Franklin
That's
side.
where Safeguard was, and then the other side, Armand Petrillo had his barbershop.
Trilla had a barber shop, and then of course Louis had the other barber shop on Main Street in Kingston.
Actually, when I first moved there, South Brunswick side were all home, residents. People lived on that side. Any businesses were across on Franklin's side.
Yeah, I stole her out of the city of Trenton and brought her up to God's country, and then God's country became like the city of Trenton.
Well, you know what I missed, and saying this to our sons yesterday, when we moved there, there were trees, and one by one, I guess they
Well, you can
died
see
for
all the
whatever
trees
reason.
are
The
still
state
here.
came and took them down, but both sides
Had trees
We're tree
lined on
lined.
both sides.
Yeah.
The road, every
picture.
every time they widen, you lose a part of your lawn or a tree.
Right.
Well,
Well,
they
I was
can't
always
widen
afraid
this
I was going to lose
anymore.
my bay windows in Kingston.
There was in the year about 6-7 years ago, they did make Kingston historical. So they can no longer do any changing except they gotta maintain the historical sites of Kingston.
Let's go down the hill a little,
All
George.
right, where would you like to go?
Down to the gate tender and,
Okay,
you
I
remember
can-
that? Remember anything about the canal when it really was
Yes, I can remember
blooming?
when they used to come through there with big yachts going from the Delaware River to the Raritan River. I can also remember them coming through with barges with coal on them, going between the two, Trenton and New Brunswick. I can also remember when the railroad used to come through there. Matter of fact, one of the fire trucks, and I think it was the 1958 Ward that the fire company got, came in by rail. It was unloaded down at the railroad station that they then had in Kingston. So then across the way from where the docks were and the bridge was a Rathskeller Hotel, which burned to the ground in 1943. And that was one of the original bars and places that
Who
people
lived in there?
That I cannot remember the name. I know they were good friends of Dad's and Mom's too that owned that. They used to live up they lived up on Dean's Lane at one time, the family did. Right near the bridge that goes across, the railroad bridge that goes across. They was about the first or second house in on the right-hand side as you're going to Route 1 from the bridge there in Dean's Lane.
Schaub's? Morel's?
No.
Is that the one we looked at that house?
That's where we looked at the house at one time to buy when they were selling because they were moving up to North Jersey. And I can't think of their names to save my soul.
Now, do you remember Mr. Lackey? He was a gate tender or a lock
I
tender?
remember Jack Lackey.
We
Well,
interviewed him.
their house is no longer gone either. That's gone.
Okay.
It used to be next to the hotel. The Rathskeller was Lackey's, and then came what they known as Russo's house, which is now Ryder Furniture.
Right, good.
But the house between the Rathskeller and the Ryder Furniture is now gone. That was just taken down. And then you had the little store they used to have there, the Luncheonette, across the street from where Ryder's Furniture is now, which is now an architect's building. They took that down and built an architect's
Who
building.
had that? What was the name of the family?
Betty Johnson was the name. It's Louis Sinkak's sister used to have the little store there. And then you had the tailor shop that used to be there at the next, and mother died, and the son now has a caterer's business. In the house next to where the architect's place is.
Now,
That's on the hill just below the school.
how old is the wine press? How old is that building?
Well, let's see, before the wine press, it was
King's Inn.
King's Inn. Before that, it was Feldman's store.
That's what I wanted you to tell me.
That used to be a store where you go in and buy clothing, candy, you name it, you could get
Eggs.
it. The eggs, it had everything there. It used to be run by, I think it was Mort Feldman. That's the one I can remember anyway. They were two Jewish fellas, very nice people. And then after that, well, when they started there, then they also built the garage later behind there, behind the Feldman. When the Feldman store closed, that's when it became a liquor place after that. And they also built where now the flower place is, and those buildings were built. And then we used to go down there, we used to skate on what they call the basin, where now the sewer plant is built. We used to take our kids skating there.
Did you swim in the canal?
I swam in the canal many a time.
Skated on the canal?
I skated on the canal all the way to Trenton one time.
Wow.
Went to the movies and then skated back home again. But used to skate on the lake too, which I don't like to do too much anymore. We used to play hockey on the lake, I can remember that. I got some splinters on my backside from the benches on the lake, I can remember that too.
What else did you do as a young boy for recreation and entertainment?
Well, next to the house that Mom and Dad finally ended up with on Lakeview Avenue was an open field. And all of us kids used to get together and play baseball there. And it was a good 300 to 350 feet from the home plate to what is now Academy Street. So we used to see how far we could hit a ball. Of course, I broke a couple of windows in the Yorshey house down the other end. But we used to have a good time playing ball. The Flemmers could come up, and a kid by the name of Howard Titus, who's deceased, John Flemmer and Steve, they used to come up to the field, and we'd all play baseball there and have a ball. It was a good time. Maybe 15 or 20 of us get together and play baseball. But back when I was about 15, I started playing ball in the Twin M League. And this is what I think the town or the community is now lacking. We don't have any sports really in baseball or a named team like we used to have the Monmouth Junction team and the Kingston team and the Plainsboro team, and Hopewell had a team in the league, and Belmead had a team in the league. We used to have a nice little baseball league that we played ball for, I guess, 30, 40 games in the summer months. Princeton Junction also had that team in the league. Princeton had a team in the league, and we used to travel all over playing ball down in North Brunswick. Adams State, right. And right now, I think that's one thing that's lacking. When a child gets out, or a boy gets out of the American Legion ball, if he wants to continue playing ball, there's nothing in South Brunswick to really get involved in. Because I remember when my son was about going on 9, he was 8 years old, George Brabson, myself, and Howard McWaters started then the Little League in South Brunswick, which has really grown since then. But we were the original starters of the Little League in South Brunswick Township. And we sat down in Howard McWater's house over there, across from the Junction School, and formed the plans. And I think we started with 6 teams, what we ended up with the first year, 4 to 6 teams. And since then, I believe it's grown to about maybe 20 or 30 teams in South Brunswick.
I was at a meeting the other night, they said 88 teams, but they weren't specific. I don't know whether they were girls, boys, Little
Probably
League,
It's gone to everything
probably
now.
everything, so
That's what we started, and we didn't get any real big money from the township at that time. It was people that donated and did their time, and I know I spent about 7, 8 years coaching over there in Little League, and then I got out of it. As my boys grew out of it, I got out of it. But in those days, the managers became babysitters, and the parent would get very angry with us if it rained and we brought the kid home because they had other things playing,
But you never had great teams, but it was like
We had
We
fun.
taught them
You had
sportsmanship.
fun.
Mostly,
Well, I
as
had
you
a-
were growing up, the focus in Kingston
I had a lot of
basically
those
was the fire company.
South Brunswick cops on my team that were now cops or are presently officers of the South Brunswick Police Department. Georgie and those who played ball. I think Butch was even on one of those
Yeah, I
first
was-
teams.
Yeah, with Jackie Lackey and Bobby Chabaro and
Right.
Bucky College,
Yeah, Bucky and
Tommy Hunt.
Smitty, who is now a member of the Monmouth Junction Fire Company and works for Public Works. He was another one of the young men that I met playing ball and that I've had respect for all these years. That, you know, over the years, see him grow up and to grow into what he's done. And it gives you a pleasure, the ones that I know that played in the Little League, and then to watch them grow into the men that they have grown into, and to realize that most of them stayed in South Brunswick.
And still remember you,
Yeah.
still say hello.